Sigmar story phase. Grab your hammer so we can clear a path through the chaos and forge our own narratives in the Age of Sigmar. Your allies through the Varanite delves this episode are...
Josh. Yes, I'm here to delve into the Red Harvest lore and excavate the secrets buried within.
Hey, and it's Paven.
Nice. And I'm Aaron. In Varanite, you are the best thing that's ever been mined. And in this episode, we cover the lore of Red Harvest. Whether you've got 8 legs or 2, the Varanite delve of Krath, calls to all. And we're here to harvest whatever lore we can from the newest expansion of Warcry. How are you tonight, fellow aspirants? How you guys doing?
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, really good. Really excited to record. Aaron, it's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a bit. I think last time... So I know Josh was on the Orc episode, which he made it a point to pick the episode that I wasn't on. I understand. I get it, man. No judgment. But then I think, Paven, you haven't been around since some of the Broken Realm stuff, which...
Yeah, a whole edition ago.
Which were essentially our best episodes, our most listened to episodes of all time. And I can't tell if it's people wanted more Broken Realms or people wanted more Paven. I can't tell. I need to put out a...
People like Davin. He's got a lot of energy.
He's got a lot of energy. I'm going to have to put out a survey after the fact to see what's more important. Broken Realms, Paven. We'll find out. But here we are today doing a fun little joint episode between the story phase and Dogs of Warcry. What's the point of being on the same network if you can't cross-pollinate, if you can't cross over?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I'm all... Yeah, I love it. Can't get enough of it. So
it's a regular old team up.
It's like your favorite Marvel tie-in.
Yeah, it's like the Thing and Wolverine back together again.
Fantastic, man! I can't wait to see that in the MCU. I feel like any day now it's about to happen. But we're not here to talk about Marvel. We're here to talk about Red Harvest, which is the newest expansion of Warcry, which we're excited to get our little hands on. And furthermore, it wouldn't be a narrative game if there wasn't some tasty narrative hooks, a bit of lore packed into this book that we wanted to talk about to you fine listeners. And so that's what we're going to do today. But before we do, we always ask, what has everybody been up to? So let's get through that real quick. Josh, in the hobby, what have you been doing lately?
Lately, I've been assembling my Dark Oath Savagers for Warcry for our Circle of Paint challenge. And got them all together, got them based today. And then I'll need to do some priming and start working on some color schemes.
Awesome. Have you done any Dark Oath stuff before? Will this be the first Dark Oath?
I've had a Slaves to Darkness warband, but I didn't paint up any of them yet. So this would be the first time I'm playing with these particular models and painting them.
Oh, very cool. Very neat. And Paven, what you been doing?
I have been, like Josh, working on the other half of the Red Harvest box set, the Tyrantulas Bluerood, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. So I have all 10 of those guys assembled. I'm going to try to, in my hubris, I'm going to try to batch paint all 10 out at the same time. And I'm through the skin, I'm through the spider silk, and now I'm just kind of working on different leathers and robes and spider bits.
Nice.
In addition, I am working on a brand new Blazing Lord kit bash for my Scions of the Flame Warband, because my last Blazing Lord was assassinated through treachery and violence.
Thank you very much.
And so did you have to just smash it? And that's why I need a new one?
When my miniatures die in the game, they die in real life.
Yeah, that's how it works. It's like the Matrix. Very cool.
How about you, Aaron? What have you been up to?
Hey, Josh, I'm glad you asked what I've been working on. I've been assembling the, what are they called? Stormdrake Guard models. And
yes.
So these dudes have been I'm trying to think, have been the apple of my eye ever since the Stormcast book came out. I think hands down my favorite new models, new kits that have come out with this new 3.0 range, the Thunderstrike version of Stormcast. And so very, very fortunate that GW had sent us a handful of things, and I was lucked out in getting my hands on these Stormdrake Guard, and they're tons of fun. I've assembled one of them already. It's just a really cool model. In fact, don't quote me on this, but I may even paint them. Well, I know. Wrap your mind around that.
Let's take pictures.
Yeah, they have such a good Dragonlance vibe to them.
Yes.
I might be picking up some myself.
What's worse is I've been asking around and everybody says swords are better, so I didn't put lances on them, even though the lances look.
I had a queued up a book cover of the Legend of Huma in that Discord chat, and I'm like, it's been too long, and it's kind of a non sequitur.
And I do it anyways.
You got to put the dragons with the guys with lances on the dragons, because dragon lance.
Yeah, they look so cool. The lances definitely look better, hands down, no question. But like, I don't know, for whatever reason, I got hung up on the swords, and here we are. And I already glued the one. Well, I don't know how to, Josh. I don't know how to do that. Okay, so. Yeah, well, I'll just have to buy a second box. The lenses look awesome.
Aaron, you're just too competitive. You're just trying to get those.
No, it's because I know, 6 years from now, when I maybe ever put them on a table, I'll look back and I'll curse 6 years younger Aaron for making the aesthetics choice.
This is way off topic, but in my experience, I always build whatever is cooler, or I try to, because by the time I play with it, it's usually flopped to be whatever was the best is usually flopped by then.
That's a good point too.
Usually you just always do the one you think looks the coolest, because that's what happened on the Maw Crusher. I built the cooler one, and then that was the better one, and then it was the worst one for an edition, and now it's the better one again. And I'm just like, well.
Now I want to know what is the good and the bad for the Maw. This is far afield, but what is the good one and the bad one for the Maw Crusher?
The Maw Crusher has two builds. One is sword and punch and fist, which is the one I like, and the other is spear and knife. And I built sword and punch and fist, and I think that was better in first edition Age of Sigmar, and then the spear was better in second edition, and now with the new book, the sword is better again because it can make an armor save.
I'm looking at mine. It's literally within arm's reach. I can touch it if I want to, but I did spear and knife. But then I also have a gorge.
But if you think that one looks the coolest, then it's the right choice.
I think I might have. I think that's why I picked it. But then I also have, going back and forth, this is going to be terrible audio, but then I also have a Gordrak who also looks super cool. So
you have two Maw Crushers?
I do have two Maw Crushers. My goal was at the time to get one of every Ironjaw model before I tapped into whatever my current obsession is. So yes, two Maw Crushers sitting right there, staring at me, saying, "Paint me." No, probably not like that. Probably paint me. That's how they sound. But that is me in a nutshell. Guys, how about we hop into our story phase, if you don't mind?
Sounds great.
All right, I'll take the place of Paul real quick, and I'll say the story phase. In the story phase, we delve into the stories, characters, creatures, and environments of the 9 realms. And it's a good thing that we wrote 9 realms, because in this case, we are hanging out in, I guess, what some would call the 9th realm, the 8 points, where almost everything in Warcry takes place. And we're going to be chatting about this Red Harvest. Trying to think the best place to dive in. I suppose let's catch everybody up. I don't know the last time you guys talked about it on Dogs of Warcry, or if we ever did on a story phase, but where are we at in terms of what's going on in the 8 points? What's the story thus far here, so that we make sure that everybody's on the same page before we talk about what's in this box. Anybody have any things that worth chatting about?
Oh boy. Here I have a suggestion for the group. I think we should tackle this in 2 phases. 1,
tell me.
Talk about the 8 points as a setting.
Mm-hmm.
2, zoom in on where we the area of the 8 points we care about for Warcry, which is the Bloodwind Spoil. How does that sound?
I love it.
Okay,
great.
I'll kick us off. I want to talk about where are we today. What is the 8 points? So to recap, what the 8 points was. The 8 points was the All Points, which was almost a utopian paradise during the Age of Myth, where a bunch of different cultures got together from all the realms, because it was a nexus point of trade and culture and art between all of the other mortal realms, because there were big, stable gates going everywhere. And so a giant, huge civilization flourished there. It's not. We used to think it was like a kind of a small island subrealm, but it's continent wide. It is huge. And so this was the seat, I believe, the seat of Sigmar's power. Maybe not. Maybe that was still Azir, but it was like an incredibly important strategic and cultural asset to the old order civilization. Well, Age of Chaos happens. Archaon comes in. wins practically, and he captures the 8 points and he corrupts it, and then he bases his seat of power there, and the 8 points becomes, the all points becomes the 8 points. For the 8-pointed Star of Chaos, and it becomes like kind of a hell on earth, where the skin of the realm is thin, and like there's demons and horrible beasts, and men are devolved into murderers, and everybody scratches out a living under the kind of tyrannical but absent rule of Archaon. So that's kind of where it is at the beginning of the Age of Sigmar. Cool things that have happened since then, since Chaos complete domination. One is the invasion of the Ossiarch Bone Reapers and the forces of death that took place in the Wrath of the Everchosen book. That is where Catacross, the undefeated, marches into the 8 points and tries to go as far as taking the Varan Spire. Archaon shows back up and beats Catacross back, but does not kill him or kills one of his many bodies. But Death and Nagash remain in control of the Arc Terminus, which is that the fort or the Realm Gate? I think it's the fort.
I think it's the fort around the Realm Gate. Yeah,
the fort around the Realm Gate in the 8 points. So Death now has a foothold in the 8 points. Also, at the end of kind of the last age, at the end of the Soul Wars, Morathi and a storm host of Stormcast Eternals invade this part of the 8 points, specifically the Bloodwind Spoil, and steal a host of Varanite out from under Archaon. The Stormcast want to do this because he was going to use Varanite to corrupt the Realm Gate leading to Azir that had been previously shut, and use that corruption to force its way open and invade Azir, the Realm of Heavens. Well, the Morathi Stormcast strike force is successful. They steal the Varanite. Morathi steals it for her own purposes and transforms into a god. But so that happened. It is important. And the other thing that happens in the Era of the Beasts, so the era we're currently in, is Gordrak invades the 8 points. We don't know a lot about it, but we know he has conquered that big worm that has a Realm Gate in it, the Maw Gate. Right. He captures the Maw Gate in Gur, and then leads a force through it to also, kind of invade Archaon's domain. So we have all of the major factions present in the 8 points now. So I think what was kind of before a chaos on chaos scrum has now become much more multidimensional and interesting. So I think that is like the backdrop of what is going on in the 8 points. Oh, one more thing I want to point out is Be'lakor has kind of turned his cold rebellion against Archaon into something a little bit more hot. So you'll see Be'lakor kind of taking out parts of Archaon's forces and leading small rebellions and taking territory for them. I don't know if that actually happens in the 8 points or that's just happening wider in the realms, though. But it is like kind of another force at play. Sorry, I just talked for a super long time. Anything you guys want to add in there? Anything I missed?
No, that's perfect. And I think it's fun because Archaon has had the 8 points secure for so long, and then and the subsequent storyline changes. Now everybody's back in the 8 points, stirring up trouble. That's great.
I like it because in the same way that it was sort of cross-cultural back when it was in the all points, now it's becoming cross-cultural again, but, cross-cultural in a sort of more of an antagonistic, aggressive way.
Yeah, the way World War I was cross-cultural.
Yeah, exactly. I already have a listener question that applies to this topic that we're on, and I think I'll bring it up now. So as Paven has shown, there's been a wide range of events. It's been an active location for a stretch now in this 8 points. But as it relates to Warcry, we've spent a lot of time in the 8 points and throughout the different releases that it's all sort of, dabbling in this Bloodwind Spoil space. Since we're talking about the past and sort of how it informs the present, the last release was Warcry Catacombs. And so a listener in the Discord, Thundercake, he asks, did the Catacombs lore hint at Red Harvest coming in anyway? And now that we can look back and see if anything ties in. So a lot of what you described is sort of much bigger picture, larger lore events. Did Catacombs specifically tie into anything that we're seeing in Red Harvest currently? Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, not really. I think the main tie-in is that Varanthax's Maw is a place, a huge description about these Varanite mines and harvesting processes. And in that sense, the Red Harvest is all about Varanite mining and subsequent delves opening up across at least the Bloodwind spoils, because Varanthax's Maw was attacked and most of the Varanite was stolen. And it kind of describes the fact that lots of warlords and warbands stole equipment from Varanthax's Maw and have set up delves across other points in the Bloodwind spoils now to try and achieve the Varanite goals that Archaon has set.
Yeah. So that makes sense. And so maybe thematically it's related, but maybe there's no specific hints from Catacombs. And I agree from what I recall. But now that we're talking about the present day, we should probably jump right into the story as it exists currently. What's happening here now? So Josh, you were talking about Archaon's goals. So what's going on there?
So the Red Harvest kind of describes the fact that he's shocked, not really shocked, I guess, but he's having to deal with all the different factions now in the 8 points, and they're disrupting his plans and his processes. And so it describes him sending out a quest for all the members of Chaos to harvest Realmstone across the realms, which is interesting in itself, because now his supply of Varanite is much reduced because Varanthax's Maw has been destroyed, and it's harder to produce more materials. And so he sent out this call to get Realmstone from other places and corrupt it and defile it. And it talks about a few examples like black crystal from Haish instead of Aether quartz. And then it goes on to say, and as part of that decree, a lot of the war bands and just powerful warlords in the 8 points said, well, we're just going to start up some new Varanite mines. And the book describes a couple, one is specifically, but mentions two, Krath the Cursed, and it mentions Steel Hells is the other one. But that's essentially what's happening here is he's had this call go out. Varanthax's Maw, which is the huge supplier of Varanite, is in disrepair and has been attacked. And so now we're finding delves sprouting up across the 8 points now to try and make up for that lost supply of Varanite.
Yeah. And so the story, or at least a fair number of the stories, are focused in on that cursed Kraths, that the delve. But the idea is that this box set could be taking place at any of these delves, right? Like the idea that you could they're sprouting up all over the place. They're maybe not individually as productive as the Maw was, but right. Collectively, they ideally could generate Varanite in a similar amounts, hopefully, and that's sort of the goals. But in the same way that it was not the same way, the opposite way, whereas it was centralized before, now it's very much decentralized, not under the control of any one, organization, one, warlord or what have you, thus allowing for a lot more conflict across the different, war bands that are called the Bloodwind Spoils home. So
right.
Ripe for games and stories to be played there for sure. Haven, anything you want to add about what's going on currently?
I just want to say it's kind of Archaon's command to go find more of this precious substance was called the Varanthrax Decree, and I think that's a cool name.
Yeah, this is a lore podcast. Remind me, Varanthrax is a god beast or just a big? What I can't remember.
Yep, was a god beast, I can't remember. It's dragon shaped, and its skeleton essentially sits on top of Varanthax's Maw.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think it that's just the name of the mountain range where all this Varanite was found. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they know exactly how the beast died. I think it's kind of a lost to myth.
Furthermore, do you think it's a coincidence that Varanthrax and the Varanspire, which came first? What? Or the Varan Guard? What is Varan in this case? Neither here nor there. All right, and then so we've done the past, we've done the present. Now we can do a little speculation if you guys want, if we got time for it. because everybody knows the Mortal Realms loves a good scry. But where do we think the story's going to go from here? Does anybody have any good juicy predictions here?
Take it away, Paven.
Oh, sure. Well, one kind of within the book itself is a gimme, which is that they want to they're using the Varanite to build like engines of war, and the Chaos Duradin that have been found in the 8 points, and that we know have like kind of cities and territories within the 8 points, are building those for Archaon. So I think they're going to play a big role, possibly in even the invasion of Azir. I've heard rumors that way. So I think like we're definitely getting some Chaos Duradin. They've been mentioned since like Warcry version 1 in the book as like NPCs you would interact with. So I think that would be my first scry, is that they're going to be involved and they're going to be a release in a range at some point.
I'll pause right there. So actually, speaking of Chaos Duardin, a listener was asking about that, so we should probably bring that up. So Lichcasts, a patron of the Mortal Realms, thank you very much, Lichcast. He asks, any sign or hints of the Chorfs, as we all know, meaning the Chaos Dwarfs. So your guess is that we're gonna head in that direction. Remind me, guys, were there mention of those Duardin in this book at all? I jumped around quite a bit, and I don't remember them specifically being brought up in this book, but I just might have missed it. Do we know if it's in this story or in this book at all?
Yeah, well, when they bring out Krath specifically, they mentioned that the machinery used to mine the Varanite was Duradin forged.
Oh, nice.
So they eventually, maybe we'll talk about this later, bound demons to them. But like the original kind of mechanisms were from Duradin,
which makes sense and doesn't surprise me at all. I wish I had a digital. I was literally gonna try and Control F if I would have had a digital version of it to see if there were any Chaos Dwarves in there. But there's no such luck. All right, Paven, you said that was your first scry. Do you have additional scries, or do we want to ask Josh?
My other scry. I think we should ask Josh first.
Okay, Josh. Hey, Josh. Where do you think we're headed here?
Well, first I'll say that there are spoilers. I'm going to mention some things that are described in the branching quests and conclusions. So just I won't get too detailed, but a few of the quests allude to the current storyline in terms of Heir to the Beast. But there are a couple of them do mention shadowy powers influencing decisions. And in one of the quests, there's this group of shadow stalkers that are trying to thwart a Cainite worshiper from trying to ascend, just like Morathi did. And when they take off with the Varanite at the end of the particular quest, they leave some behind, but they also leave a dagger that's inscribed with Ulgu's Shadow King's symbol. So sent by Malarion, so these shadow stalkers are working for Malarion and not for Morathi. So, there are a few different shadowy references. One shadowy power could be Be'lakor, but, so it could be Be'lakor, it could be Malarion. And I think Ulgu elves and Malarion are probably going to play a role in some of the futures come through. I
love that, scry, and I agree with you. When I read the little story that you're mentioning about the Shadow King knife or dagger that left behind, I think they're drip feeding us now to get us ready, because I think it's a glaring, obviously it's one of the few holes left in the ranges, right, is the Shadow Elves, and so it's we've known for a long time it's only a matter of time. So the fact that we're getting these hints now is really getting me ramped up. And I'm not even a big Dark Elves guy, but at this point I just love completing sets. So bring them on. So that I'm excited about as well. And then if we're just talking about other players in the space, I'm jazzed to see what Gordrak has to do, what he's going to be up to in the 8 points. I think I remember back to our Kragnos discussion. I feel like I was wholly on Team Gordrak at that point. He's taking control and he's taking charge in the 8 points, and he's gonna crack some skulls, because he's got some making up to do. He's done some soul searching, and he's ready to reassert his dominance, and I think we're ripe for something very neat in this space.
Yeah, and he's off to challenge Archeon, right?
Yeah, but headbutt that nerd.
I love the scries both of you had. I definitely that find of the Shadow King of Ugu was very cool. And I'm just waiting for Gordrak's redemption arc. I really need a how him to get his groove back, or the Wa was inside of him all along. I'm really, after kind of the beating he took in Kragnos, I'm ready for him to kick some butt.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the stuff we talked about has been on a much grander scale. We had another question from Thundercake that he asked here. He asked anything in the Red Harvest lore that points to the next box. And so let me modify that question or clarify that question in terms of what I'm interested in, because that's what's important is what I want. And that we in Catacombs we didn't necessarily predict that the Red Harvest would be sort of the direction that we were going, but it's also we didn't necessarily know that we weren't looking for what the next thing was, at least in my mind. Now that we kind of know, we go from Catacombs to Red Harvest. Do you guys have any predictions on where the story could go on the smaller scale, or on the Warcry scale, right? Because they were not concerned with the big movers and shakers of the world. It's the interpersonal stories at this level. Where do you guys either expect it to go, or where do you want to go at the warband sized space?
I don't know. We don't have nothing in Red Harvest really screamed to me oh, this is obviously going to be the next set. Kind of similar to how Catacombs didn't, as you mentioned. They could take it in any direction, really. I really would like them to take it into out of the 8 points. I think that could be really fresh and refreshing, just to see something a different non-corrupted or non-completely corrupted environment to battle in. So that would be my let's say Archeon busts open the gate of his ear, and now chaos is now rules a big section of the lore of not the lore of heavens, but the realm of heaven.
Very 8th edition of you.
Yeah. I was trying to call down some Cassandora's comment. But a big section of the realm of heavens, and so it's half idyllic and beautiful and half corrupted, and and now there's warbands just roaming the countryside, battling it out there. That would be cool.
That would be cool.
Wild. That's wild. Yeah.
Josh, do you have any hopes and dreams?
I haven't thought about that. I mean, I love the idea of using the Warcry rule sets and everything outside of the 8 points as well. And I think it'd be fun to have some more cities and different types of campaigns. I know some people like Soroth Core, but still wanted something more Mordheim-esque. So if they came out with a campaign system, maybe we're delving deeper and closer to the Varen Spire and some ruined industrial complexes and cities that, if we could introduce a more in-depth detailed set or something like that. Or maybe we head back to, the in-between realms. That would be kind of interesting too.
Yeah, right on. I agree. I like the idea of pulling up stakes from the 8 points and venturing to parts unknown. However, given that the Bloodwind Spoils is just one pizza slice of the 8 points as a whole, I wonder if they would be more inclined to just shift one to the left, one to the right, pick a different slice and explore a space still in the 8 points that maybe is, different but the same. I wonder if they would be more interested in doing. I don't know. Maybe we have to interview them. I haven't asked them, but I'd be curious to see how that would look. The thing is the 8 points is already so wild and varied in that it's just every version of corruption you can think of exists in this space, and so maybe they can get creative while keeping their foot in the corrupted. I don't want to keep using the word space in the corrupted milieu, perhaps. That's what I expect. I would. I'm with you guys though in preferring that. Let's just skip the whole thing entirely. Let's ransack a Nazirian city or something like that. I think that would be very neat. But let's see where they go. I definitely thought when they were dabbling with the K-Knight Shadow Stalkers.
Yep.
That they were gonna sort of ditch the chaos sort of shackles a little bit and expand out. But then here we are. We've turned right back around and dove right back into chaos. So I have no idea what they plan on doing or where they plan on going with this. So
Right. I do like the pie slice idea, though, shifting, one to the left, one to the right, and see, maybe there's terrain or cities more related to that particular realm gate that kind of shift the narrative a little bit.
Actually, that would be super cool. However, the fact that the one we're in right now doesn't seem to have, at least to my mind, it doesn't have all that much to do with, because what is it? It's between Shaman
and Gur.
And Gur. Is it? Are we getting really Shaman Gur vibes out of this slice? Yeah, maybe with the industry. I guess that's kind of.
We got a little bit more now, right?
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that's a good point, because then wouldn't that be cool for every pie slice you go through that like the environment is what is the mixture of I don't know, life and fire and chaos. Add those three together, and what does that look like? That would be neat to see.
Yeah. But I think the pie slice to the right is, I think it's Gyran, right? Because that's where they came in when Morathi and the Stormhost. So that that one's essentially open and guarded too. So that would add a different element that you might have to worry about. So.
Yeah, true. Let's get him on the horn. Let's ask him what's coming up.
Right.
All right. So with that, I got through the questions that people were asking. Do you guys have any story-based thoughts that you want to chat about here? Floor is open.
I feel like we covered it as far as story goes.
Yep.
I think so too. In that case, it's next on the list, and for no particular reason. We also have a pair of new war bands that might be worth chatting about. I'm into them. I hope you guys are into them. So let's dive right in. So we've got Dark Oath listed first, unless anybody objects. But we can start chatting about these guys.
Perfect. Sounds great.
Awesome. So for the person who's putting together the Dark Oath, Josh, you want to tell us about them?
Yeah, definitely. So the Dark Oath are essentially a faction we keep getting, individual models for, and then we got an Underworlds warband, and now we've got more models. So hopefully they'll be a faction unto themselves. A lot of people think the Marauders will become the Dark Oath, but they're essentially undivided chaos worshippers, a group of humans who have made an oath to chaos to follow them, and they're focused on victory and attaining glory, improving themselves. And in this particular warband, they, whatever oaths you make, they will follow, and they will do it until it's done. And and they're focused on challenging themselves and attaining glory. Very nice, kind of not really barbarian-esque, but a little bit, since they designed a model that looked very similar to Conan the Barbarian. Kind of hails back to some previous models in Hero Quest. So a lot of fun throwbacks there. And the models have a lot of furs and bones and muscles and skin. So yeah, it kind of definitely has that Dark Oath Barbarian, and they fit well with the War Queen and the Dark Oath Chieftain that they had released a while back too.
Yeah, good job naming them. I have a comment and I have a question. Comment. I was despondent. I was beside myself when I thought, you know what, the Dark Oath are done. After I think it was the
Underworlds.
Yeah, it was the Underworlds was the last sort of release there, and I thought, all right, they're going in a different direction. I see what they've got going with Warcry. The Dark Oath doesn't necessarily align with that concept per se. So like, it was a fun little experiment, but we're not going to see these guys again. What wasted potential. But now I have new hope. They released this new warband. I can see that they still have a place in sort of the I was going to say the pantheon, not the pantheon, the range of chaos. And I was so delighted to see them brought back. And if at the very least, if they're not, if it's not a brand new faction, with the way that, and I use this term endearingly, I don't have a problem with this idea, with the way that they're souping battle tomes and sort of subdividing a lot of these battle tomes into, parceling out like sub races and sub factions and some alliances in these books. I see no reason why Dark Oath can't serve that same purpose in the Slaves to Darkness range. And I hope to see a lot more. So that's my comment. My question, however, how do you guys feel with the Dark Oath Savagers and the, oh my gosh, I don't do Warcry stuff, the Untamed Beasts sort of side by side? Too close? Sufficiently separated? Does that rub you the wrong way at all?
No, good question. I think aesthetically the Untamed Beasts have they don't use metal at all, so that distinguishes the two of them very clearly. So one's got bones; they have a lot more bone weapons. They have more decorations on their heads, and even though they're all have furs and they're a little bit more muscular and skinned, the Dark Oath models are all larger. There aren't any younger aspirants or anything in this particular warband. And then, again, they're all using metal weapons, and they have the one, I don't know, sightseer, the shamanistic lady, which would be a fun addition. Yeah, so she casts some spells, can predict the future, give you some wild dice, and it's kind of like the blind guide. There's in one way, and I did do this model. She's got a hand that holds an eyeball, just like Ogra from the Dark Crystal.
Very cool. So it seems like it doesn't bother you. Paven, do you have any thoughts about the proximity between Untamed Beasts and the Savagers?
Not the Untamed Beasts.
Ooh, different direction.
The Spire Tyrants. Spire Tyrants don't have that kind of they're not from the Untamed Beasts are from Gur, so they're very and they have that weird lion with them, and so they have a more animalistic bent. As Josh mentioned. And so I think they have a strong theme. The Spire Tyrants are gladiators. That is their theme, but aesthetically kind of very similar to the Dark Oath. I think the Dark Oath come out on top as far as miniatures, but I don't think we needed two non-realm war bands that didn't do something super weird. I guess they weren't weird enough, either of them. I don't know. I think it's fine. They're all cool models. I don't know. But I think those two are too similar a little bit. They kind of exist in the same space.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of like it's a gradient. You go from Untamed Beasts to Dark Oath to Spire Tyrants, in my mind.
Yeah.
It's an evolution. Maybe one goes from the next, a beast discovers, hey, and this metal's pretty cool, and then they become a Dark Oath, and they're like, wait a sec, I'm gonna go fight in the pits. That's my own headcanon. Josh, do you have a response?
No. I think that is a good point. I think obviously narratively they have very different. One's a gladiatorial warband, which is why they have mixed races in it as well, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I definitely think Paven's right in terms of how much armor they've got, the sorts of weapons and mixes. They can be similar in some respects. But yeah, I think it's the ideology that definitely separates the two.
Yeah, and I think maybe the only reason, or the reason I even bring this up in the first place, is that Warcry does such a great job. I mean, specifically with their warbands, by at introducing the wild and the weird into this space. And so for so many of the other ones, they've gone just sort of off. They've gone off the deep end, I guess. Yeah, I mean, they've really pushed the boundary on what they're capable of doing in these models. And at the same time, there are these a couple examples that we just talked about of very similarities where they didn't need to necessarily do that. They could have gone, in a completely different direction. And so I think that similarity stands out. The uniformity is what stands out compared to the wildness of some of the other ones.
Yeah, and I think one of the appeals of Dark Oath in general, I've seen for a lot of people, is the fact that it kind of helps answer the question: what happened to humans during the Age of Chaos? Well, this is what happened to humans, and if you've read the book War Queen, it does a really nice kind of description of it talks about a War Queen and her role in the Dark Oath warband, but it talks about how they live and what they do, and how they fit into the realm of during the Age of Chaos, but still are people, so I think this kind of lends that particular information in terms of these are undivided worshipers of chaos. They're relatively, still human, and they just have a pantheon of gods that they worship, just like Order would or something else. But it's, I think in that way, it kind of adds that interest and answers some questions for people.
Yeah, agree.
But I think in terms of weird and wild, we're definitely coming out to our next warband here.
Yeah, that's true.
Brood.
Let's talk about the Tarantulas Brood. Paven, you want to chat about your spider dudes?
Yeah, so my Spider-Man are a bunch of weird boys and gals. They're for sure creeps. What they want to do, their version of chaos is a giant spider that is poisoning the realms and stabbing it with its legs. And do spiders stab things with their legs? Does that even ever happen? I don't know. But yeah,
not really.
Really
Yeah.
horrible kind of chaos as a spider, which you thought chaos was bad. Wait till it's a spider. Because, 8 points, 8 eyes, 8 legs, like, coincidence?
It basically writes itself.
Yeah. And so they really into spiders. They have like kind of spider, like, I wouldn't say familiars, maybe familiars, but they hang out with a lot of spiders. They have like spiders the size of dogs that they kind of interface with and join the warband. And what they're trying to do, which is the worst part, is that they're trying to turn themselves into spiders, because they think that would be the best way to worship chaos, is to turn themselves into giant monstrous spiders. So they're experimenting on themselves using magic and science and just surgery to transform, to like give themselves extra arms and more eyes, and try to take the perfect form of a chaos spider. And what Varanite, one of the things it's really great for is uncontrollable mutations, and so Varanite is key to these dark experiments. So they're trying to gather it to, like, get all oiled up with it and grow a bunch of extra arms and do it that way. So their miniature line is a bunch of creeps.
Yeah, real creepy. So, I mean, I feel like there's been plenty of stories of people who wanted to be Spider-Man messing with radioactive spiders. I mean, this is just the Warhammer version of that.
Right. This is what they don't tell you.
This is how Spider-Man was made. Josh, do you have anything you want to add to our Tarantulas brood?
Yeah, no, I think the concept of the eightfold watcher is a fun one, especially with all the correlations to 8-pointed star realms and everything else. And they have some interesting lore where they talk about having a gestalt, psychic gestalt, so they all sort of communicate with each other or are connected to each other, and the spiders that follow them, so it's definitely like an insect brood of some sort where there's this subliminal psychic communication that's ongoing within Swordband, and that's a kind of a neat concept that we haven't really seen. You expect that maybe with like a Tzeentchian warband or something, but here they kind of point that out. It certainly seems interesting. And some of the quests that are related to them are all about capturing people to do experiments to, help them ascend. So,
they're so generous. They're so kind of them.
I know, right? So they can learn from it and help them then use the information on themselves. Yes.
You mentioned that some of the stuff you'd expect out of a Tzeentchian warband, but like to some degree, we don't know that this isn't a Tzeentchian warband, right? Like it's not really talked about in this book, but I think one of the themes, like OG Warcry, was that a lot of these Warcry warband and Chaos warbands are worshiping their own sort of deities and pantheons, not really understanding that, like, maybe what they're worshiping is a stand-in for a chaos god that they just don't know that well. And so, like, if I gun to my head, if I had to pick what chaos god most emulates the spider god, well, it seems very Tzeentchian, right? He's got his webs. He's weaving all sorts of plots. He's got a foot in each realm kind of thing. So like
change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep, exactly. Change. That's a great idea. So that maybe they are worshiping Tzeentch, they just don't realize it. Before Warcry, I didn't realize how much I needed animal-based chaos factions, but now that we keep getting them, I'm all about it. I'm glad that they're doing it. We've got our snakes. We've got our, is it crows or ravens? And now we've got our spiders here as well. Just keep them coming. Find the creepiest and crawliest of creatures, and then slap a warband on them, and I'm here for it.
We had that scorpion symbol in catacombs. Maybe there's a scorpion-based warband out there still.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, I mean, continue with our Spider-Man villains as well. A question from the Discord. Will Lawless, also a patron. Thank you very much, Will. He asks, how localized are the Tarantulas peeps? I'll preface that with a lot of, not all, but many of our Warcry Chaos warbands, they hail from a given mortal realms that, not the 8 points, but they come from, Gyran or Gur or what have you. I didn't get a sense of if or where any Tarantulas folks like hailed from? Did they just get their start from the 8 points, or do they have an affinity to anywhere else? Did you guys pick up on anything like that in the book?
I'll just say that for both warbands in this box set, the Dark Oath Savagers and Tarantula's Brood don't have any reference to any realm that they come from. I definitely think for the Dark Oath Savagers, they could come from anywhere because there are humans worshiping chaos across the realms. Mm-hmm. But they didn't mention specifically that Tarantula's Brood is localized only here. But that's quite possible because that's where the Varanite is. But they do allude to other techniques that they use to ascend. What about your thoughts, Paven?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything specifically that put him in a place. Yeah, I think it could be anywhere. We haven't heard of them before, but there could be pockets of this weird chaos cult anywhere in the realms.
Maybe right behind you. I agree with that being the case. However, I kind of miss. I liked the idea of like each of the bands kind of like hailing from a realm. Now that we've covered all of them besides Azir, I'm bummed that we might like lose some of that like pattern and trend. I thought again, like with the Canaanite forces, that they were going to do another round. Maybe from an order perspective, I feel like everybody was talking about that for a while, thinking that was the direction that we went. But nope, threw me off the scent. So.
Yeah, I agree. I really like that they tried to talk like each of the warbands were from a like kind of devolved culture. Like, there was a version of the what was the Gyran one? The Splintered Fang.
There you go.
There was like a version of the Splintered Fang that worshipped the God Beast that didn't actually worship chaos, and that they were like a kind of a regular kind of a tribal group within Gyran, and that they fell to chaos, and you could kind of see that in the miniature range and like the way they're described in the narrative. And I feel like they weren't so specific with the Dark Oath in the Tarantulas or Tarantulos, and I kind of miss it. I like it when things are really specific.
Yeah.
And if they just give us an example of a kind of a coven or a sect of the Tarantulas that came out of Ulgu or something, that was like out of the decaying corpse of a civilization, they like kind of spring up. I think that'd been really cool. So I hope they do more of that.
I agree wholeheartedly. I'm right there with you. Any final thoughts about our two new warbands before we continue?
No.
Okay, awesome. All right, so then I think next one of the third and maybe final pillar of the lore in this here book is we've been presented with a wide range of quests in this here tome, and maybe we could chat about some of the fun things that we found in those. I guess maybe I'll start with and it's different. There's different types of quests in this book as well. Because we've got our two new warbands, obviously they got to give us some quests for those warbands to go on, for the Dark Oath and for the Tarantulas. Did anything from either of the four quest lines for those warbands, did anything jump out at you guys, or things you want to talk about for those?
Yeah, one of the Dark Oath quests is called Sundered Oaths. And again, oaths being extremely important to the Dark Oath. Your warband is taking up the quest to go after an Oathbreaker shaman named Aurochs Ninetongue, who promised to make 70 Varanite blades for the 70 Varangard. And so he essentially leaves, and they have to chase him down throughout the quest. But he reveals something interesting at the end of the quest line. Again, spoilers, which could allude to some future narrative bits in Warcry or in AOS in general. But he says a shadowy power taught him or revealed to him that Varanite must not be disturbed by mortal hands, and that Archaon would suffer, and then everybody in Krath would fall in time. So it's, somebody manipulating him to make him not make these weapons, or is there actually some further deeper story with Varanite and something bad's going to happen in the 8 points because it's been digging up and it's destabilizing the mini realm or what might happen. And so I thought that was a kind of a neat reveal that maybe turns into something, maybe not.
Yeah, I agree. When we were asking before, like, where do we think this is going to go? Are there any hints in the book? And we were like, not really. It's not necessarily clear. Well, I mean, you could maybe consider this one of those. Like this could be a consideration as to what then happens next, especially if like the thread of Warcry like follows, Varanite. It's like the story of Varanite. Like, I mean, maybe that would be the next logical event to occur. So yeah, it was really neat. Paven, did you have any quests here? Anything out in these quests that jumped out at you?
Nothing that jumped out at me besides what Josh already mentioned, the shadowy power. My money, the easy money is on Bellicor, just trying to subvert Archaon, but it could be something else more weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the quests are good. They're pretty standard. Like, hey, go in, fight a bunch of people, get some Varanite. I think they all have that through them. Nothing I really want to call out, at least for these 4 quests.
Sure. It occurs to me as I'm reading these notes, I've got a listener question that really belonged up in the warband section that I forgot to ask, so I'm going to have to ask it right now. Sorry, Tough Ghost. But because they ask, is there any mention of, this is a non sequitur, I apologize. Is there any mention of non-human members of either warband? Do you think that we'll see more mixed species warbands released for Warcry? So again, this makes more sense up above, but I don't remember any mention of non-human members of the warband, unless you consider the spider people no longer human at this point. But well, and the spiders themselves, I suppose, right? They've got the spiders in the warband, but
right.
But both of them are pretty human based, right?
Yeah. I think the only mixed species. Well, we've got a couple. We've got the Spire Tyrants. That one's quite mixed. The Iron Golems have a Chaos Dwarf
And an ogre.
The Splinter Fang have an elf. Yep. And but yeah, those are the only mixed ones that I'm aware of. So these don't have any besides the spiders.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if they'll, what they might introduce in the future.
I think go ahead.
Yeah, I really hope they do more. I think that's really interesting when it's because chaos is cross-cultural. It's a very it's a growing religion. Yeah, I like to see that manifested in miniatures, and I hope they do more of that. I think they will. They didn't pursue that for these 2 warbands.
Yeah, so I agree that I do expect and hope that we will see more mixed species warbands, because it gives you opportunity to like re-envision like what it means to be an elf or an ogre, or like whatever the next thing is, right? Like maybe they come up with they drop a Skaven in a warband, or I'm just looking at my wall with the pictures on it, like, or they drop a corrupted Sylvaneth. No, that's probably not going to happen, but like just generally I had mentioned before about how wild they can get with some of these warbands. I think that is going to be the hallmark of things going forward. Like that, this Warcry is the space where you can drop all sorts of wacky, crazy stuff.
Yeah,
definitely.
All about it. All right, so we talked about the sort of faction-specific quests. They also introduced these branching quests into Red Harvest, which is to say it's no longer a single route to glory. The path is no longer a one track, but rather you can pick and choose how you reach the top of the pecking order, so to speak. And so for each Grand Alliance, they give you this branching quest line, which is actually pretty cool. You get some choice, you get some options. Did anything in these quests jump out at you guys in terms of stuff that our listeners need to know about?
I'll just mention it as a general statement. I thought it was a pretty interesting addition, because the Fated quest that they'd added before, you would have 2 options at the end, and that kind of determined what reward you got. But yeah, this is quite different, where you have the quest, and then you're given a choose your own adventure story. Like, you've got 3 paths to go down, and some of them even branch one more time. You've got 2 choices off of that one. So I thought that was a really nice addition, where you can continue to make different choices based on your narrative and on the same quest as somebody else. I thought it was a really neat addition. So
yeah, I agree. It's very so they used to do something similar. They had a little campaign, I don't know what you'd call them, but in Warhammer Fantasy, like towards the end there, they released a bunch of like you would I don't know, you had your own little campaign that you would do, and you would branch off in different directions. It wasn't exactly the same setup, but like they've explored that space before, and I'm glad to see them circle back to it, however many years later. So that was pretty neat.
One thing I like that I've been seeing in these quests, and we already mentioned kind of the elf subplot to the Chaos quest, which is really cool. I guess I'll spoil it a little bit. At the end of one of them, you're trying to help, as Josh mentioned before, an agent of Morathi, or not an agent of Morathi, but just a regular kind of daughter of Cain, try to follow in Morathi's footsteps and also pursue ascension. So she gathers a bunch of Varanite into like a cauldron of blood and jumps in. And as you can imagine, she just like turns into like a complete monster, and it doesn't work at all. And like the whole quest is like, yeah, you're pretty sure this isn't going to work, but whatever.
Yeah.
That was a really cool one. But you also, there's a lot of these. I always like when you interact with interesting characters, because it gives you like a little bit, more insight into what's going on. Because you don't often see like NPCs in Warhammer, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
And so you get to also like entreat. You have an option of like working with Skaven as well. And I don't know, we didn't get a lot of. I think this is not the first mention of Skaven in the 8 points, but we don't get a lot of mention of them. So it's cool to see, your warband working with a master molder to use the Varanite to make really gross Skaven stuff. So that's cool.
Yeah, agreed. I like the order question because a lot of it is based off of like sabotaging the machines, and so it really brings in the really cool terrain from this box set into play. In that, like, I think we haven't really even talked about it all that much, but like with this mining of the Varanite comes awesome terrain, which is again one of the major selling factors of Warcry. And so I liked the idea. I don't ever get to play all that much, but like I do like these storylines that are really integrating the terrain on which you're playing with. So like they're sort of, they go hand in hand. And so because of that, you're going to be sabotaging the what are like the sluices or the pumps and stuff like that. So that it's very ordery in this space.
Yep. Yeah, and I think the destruction and death quests are interesting because again they kind of tell the story of, all right, well, these factions are in the 8 points. What are they actually doing here? And so the destruction one, as you imagine, is somewhat chaotic, where the person, your war band, apparently you lost your boss's lucky bone charm in a squig, ate it, and ran away, and you gotta go chase it down. But in terms of that, then you then the branching quest starts up, and you're like, oh, I can continue to chasing the squig, or maybe I'll go find some artifacts, or maybe I got to stop these people from collecting this stuff. So it kind of branches out from there.
Yeah, there's a lot of funny forgetting what you were doing in that quest.
Yeah, exactly. It was like that was a great little tidbit at the end of that one.
Well, I like the idea. That it highlights that people aren't just both destruction and death aren't just twiddling their thumbs now that they've made egress into the realm. Like there are things to be done and quests to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, for death, they're all about, well, we got to figure out what this Varanite stuff is, so we know how to counter it and whatever else, and then it kind of alludes to death not being immune to it, and so they got to figure out how to handle it appropriately, or find somebody with the information and how to handle it, or just bring some material back for study. So definitely some kind of fun insight into how those factions view Varanite and what's going on.
Yeah, I think that covers. Again, I just made up these 3 pillars, but the 3 pillars of this here book. However, there's a couple other questions that have come in, or things that we can talk about yet. Let me start with a question from another question from Thundercake. Thank you, Thundercake, for all your questions. And to your listener, if you yourself want to ask questions on the Mortal Realms, I'll tell you what you got to do. You got to hang out in our Discord server, which is found at www.themortalrealms.com/Discord. Hang out there all day, every day. And then just hope that one day I ask, hey, we're going to record an episode tonight. Would you like to ask any questions? And there's your chance. It's not a trick. You can just do it. And Thundercake asked, any other warbands hinted at in the lore? Let's start there. Did you guys get any whiffs of any potential warbands in this here book?
Yeah, I think just the allusion to Shadowstalkers working for Malarion was the big one I saw, or some sort of shadowy elf working for Malarion anyway.
Yeah, good hint. I didn't see any others. Paven, did you see anything in there?
No, we got. I feel like we got more hints in Catacombs, at least with wild symbols. We didn't know what they meant than we did here. No. I mean, Skaven are mentioned, dwarves are mentioned, or chaos dwarves are mentioned. but otherwise no warband.
This isn't what he was asking, but I thought one of the cool parts of the book was that there were a number of like sidebar like named characters that they just give you little blurbs on. But it was neat because they give you just little folks I'd never heard of before, and not even just in the Chaos Warbands, but in, there was a Stormcast in there and K-Knight, Shadowstalker in there too. So they're not new warbands per se, but it's new characters that we just got a little bit of background on, or a little bit like a pull quote from them, which I thought was a nice touch. I like when they do stuff like that.
Yeah, little cameos. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, agreed. So that's pretty cool. Did you guys have any other things you wanted to talk about? Other points of interest? The things we're chatting about?
Yeah, the one other point of interest, they mentioned 2 Varanite delves in Red Harvest. Again, Krath and then Steel Hells. And Steel Hells, they don't really talk about at all further in the book. They're just a little blurb in the map that talks about it being occupied with these machine entities wandering in the darkness. So either the demonic machines or, maybe they were made to be mining machines, but now they walk around and dominate the delves. So, I thought it was really interesting. It'd be fun to come up with some scenarios where you have wandering monsters and there are all these machines that are wandering around the delve that you got to deal with in addition to the normal quests.
Yeah, a clockwork chaos faction would be really
right. Right. Demonic machine chaos faction. Yeah.
Which that was a lot of what Chaos Dwarfs were right? Like weren't a lot of their war machines like possessed or somewhere, like demonic war machines? Maybe I made that up, but I thought that was like there was that train. That must have been a demon train. It had to have been. It's very scary. Paven, are anything you want to talk about?
No, I think for 4 full pages of lore, which is kind of what the start of this book is, I think we got a pretty solid podcast out of it.
Yeah, we sure did. Though we're only at like an hour at this point. I'm used to my 3 hour. We got to pad this baby. And to that end, actually, while we've been recording, Lichcast, patron of the show, and since he's a patron, I got to bring this up. He asked another question. That's what we do this live, man. Like just off the cuff. He had asked, "What's Arcan doing now that he's done calling people forever choosing?" We kind of talked about what he's up to, right? His goal being that he's collecting the Varanite, right? So that's all the book really hints at. But now that a lot of people are beating down his door, I imagine we're going to get a lot more Arcan real soon. So stay tuned for that.
And I don't think he's ever done choosing. I think the call is always out there, like the bat signal.
ABC, always be choosing Arcan. And then finally, last thing I want to chat about is we should probably give a final, review, our final thoughts on the book. What did we think about? Actually, first of all, let's say we should probably thank GW for sending us a copy, and by us I mean you guys, a copy of Red Harvest. Is mighty kind of you. But this is what I want from you guys is an unbiased review of at least the lore of the expansion. What did you guys think? I'll start with Josh.
I thought the lore was fun. It was kind of fun to see how it evolved from Varanthax's Maw and how it incorporated the ongoing AOS storyline. I thought that was nice. The 2 new warbands are really cool. One kind of a generic in the world. These are normal people now in the Chaos realms. This is how they work. And then a wildly off the cuff, mutative, warband. I thought those are awesome. And I think that adds a lot of fun lore to this. In addition to the branching quests, which I thought was a nice touch for the choosing your own adventure paths.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll do more branching quests. I think they probably should. And also, I said unbiased. Josh, come on, man. I kid.
I have my own box. Yeah, because I gave you one.
Yeah, I know. Me too. I'm still waiting for my box.
Likewise.
Paven, what did you think of it?
I give it 6 out of 8 Fold Watchers.
Oh, there you go. That's how we're supposed to do
it. That's a Moral Realms listener right there.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess seriously, good book, good starter set. Wasn't necessarily like a 10 out of 10 lore book for me. It was a little like light on the lore, and it was a continuation of an existing story. And I'm always hungry for like twists and turns. But yeah, good book. If you haven't gotten to Warcry yet, this is a really great set. And I think the only starter set that's available. So, pick it up.
Catacombs is done? Yeah, it must be. Actually, yeah, that sounds right.
Well, you might be able to find some copies other places, but it's out of print.
If you want it, you better start looking for it now. Let's think. I wasn't going to do a number, but now I will. And I'll give it a 2 out of 3 branching quest paths.
There you go.
That doesn't quite do it. 2.5 out of 3, I suppose. In that, I echo Paven's sentiment. It was good for what it was. Obviously, it was a little light, but I mean, it's not meant to be an exposition lore type book. My problem with it is that thematically it was really, really close to Catacombs. Like, yes, I understand it was a continuation of like the Catacombs story, but like at the end of the day, this is still very much digging, mining, pulling up Varanite. The themes are very similar. It seems like it's just Catacombs Part 2, which is fine. But like Paven said, I agree with you completely. I was hoping for let's zig, let's zag, let's go to some new places or deal with new concepts. Which we'll get there. I'm sure the next one will, or the one after that. So I understand why the book is what it is. But I still recommend it, and if it's the only one out there, I recommend Warcry. So you gotta do what you gotta do. And the sluices, I think those are cool as heck. Sluices. And that's all I have to say about that. Anything else you guys want to add before we close her out?
No, thank you.
Because here we go. It's time for our reforging, but Sigmar willing will be back soon. Like, subscribe, share, or leave a review. Join us on Discord, drop a tip on our Patreon. Anything you can do will spread the word of Sigmar farther than we can on our own. Chat with us anytime about your thoughts on Twitter at The Mortal Realms. And Paven, where can they find you online?
On the Discord channel.
Best place. And Josh, where can they find you online?
In the Discord channel or at J.E. Arrington on Twitter.
Awesome. And I'm Aaron. You can find me at Dos Asos on Twitter. And you can find all our Mortal Realms shows and content at www.themortalrealms.com. The end. Oh man, guys, it's going to be an hour and 11. This is going to be the easiest edit of my life, and I can't wait. I'm so jazzed. Assuming that I actually recorded, and I'm still kind of nervous that I didn't.